Okay.
And so Mark just asked me a great question. He asked whether we see. Could you say it again, Mark?
Yeah, I guess the question is, in looking over the ReelwUrld site and all the videos, and the emphasis on justice for hire as the first prototype, the question is the objective of ReelwUrld to create feature-length movies with other worlds, just like it did with Justice for Hire, or is Justice for Hire really, is it not kind of the prototype end product that ReelwUrld will create? Is it possible, do you contemplate that, say, an individual who wants to create their own story and maybe create a video short of their own story, is it contemplated that that person would be able to use the ReelwUrld tools to accomplish that? Or really is it more like with Justice for Hire, getting together a community of people, providing a platform for them a social platform for them to communicate and collaborate collectively to create a movie, a feature-length movie?
Yeah, this is great. I love this question because it makes me have to get to the core of what we're doing, because the language around what we're doing when it comes to the industry is there's a shift happening, and that shift can lead to a corrosion of what something means. Mm-hmm. And so I think the main thing we're doing is helping people create a cinematic story, and whether that story is made with one person or made with a bunch of people, and whether it is the narrative of one character or multiple characters coming together, that all these pieces of visual storytelling will come together to paint an even larger picture. And whether that means it's just living on an app, or it's collected into pieces of each, or collected into a show or a movie as an end product, whatever the end product, the desired end product is in that visual storytelling process, show, movie, or simply ongoing social network of creators, all three of those, the process is the same for all three. I'd say that the process is similar for all three. There's always a difference in like what the end product is going to be. I think that with ReelwUrld, what the intention for, if ReelwUrld is only for a user that is, let's call them the world builder, I have an idea, my story is a container for other people's stories, and I'm building a world, then you just being able to see all these people telling a story with you, and you be able to guide them by creating content that makes them want to create more content, is a very particular process, like behavioral process of, I made this, look at it, oh, that's cool. It's an invitation for you to make more and make stuff with me. And that's what we've done with JFH. However, with JFH, the end goal is to have a piece of episodic content, or the product is multiple pieces of episodic content that all tie together and use smaller pieces of everybody else's piece, along with the stuff that we've created to invite people to create in the first place. So that end product in and of itself has its own monetization path, has its own distribution path outside of the ReelwUrld ecosystem. It can have, but it could also just live in the ReelwUrld ecosystem. But there's a process to create an end product. And if we were making a film, which is just a longer form of content, a longer piece of content, we would just need to think along the lines of that format. So the formats are the language that's being used to describe the format can become a barrier to people for understanding, because at the end of the day, we're still only talking about community-driven cinematic storytelling. And however that, and if we were to even take away community-driven cinematic storytelling, what we're talking about is a video-first social network. And if we're talking about video first social network, everyone kind of knows what that is right now. And so the difference between making videos and making videos that relate to each other because of story is really just a matter of intention. And so we've created a very intentional social network where people are creating story that connects to other people's story on one site. And the more we do that, the more things we can do with this growing story. And we can cut lots of different versions of lots of different, distributable products out of that showcase a glimpse into the story. And someone might call it a show, they might call it a movie. And the more intentional with where we want that product to end, the more we can guide the community to tell stories that work toward that end, and be mindful of what we pick and choose out of what people create.
Okay, so it sounds like from that description, and that was a good one, it's as much, if not more, about the process than it is about an end product of a movie.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so when we say make movies and shows with the world, it is an attempt for people. It's an attempt for us to let people know what's possible, but not necessarily the only thing that we can do. And I think that's where the challenge may come in, where someone might say, oh, well, this is all about content. I was talking to Bronson earlier. I was saying, he's like, well, it seems like you might be getting caught in a place where you don't fit into a box because you're not really just content, but you're also not just technology. And I'm like, well, we're not also, he's like, you're both. I'm like, well, we're more than that. We're actually experience. It's actually the experience that comes before the content. Because if people don't have a good experience interacting with our ecosystem, they're not going to want to make the content. So like the thing that's going to get people excited, like the excitement has to happen. Something has to get inside of you that makes you say, that's cool, I want to do it too. And so therefore I just saw the Mortal Kombat commercial from 1993, Mortal Kombat 2, like coming to home consoles commercial. And that commercial gives me like a super, it's like 30 seconds. It makes me like want to get up and be in Mortal Kombat. Oh, Mortal Kombat, and so people need to see that catalyzing piece of content that makes them want to do it too. And I think that's really the key, is that they have to have excitement. They have to have some form of community, sense of community that's also excited. And then they're like, okay, I'm going in. And then they go and make something, and then they feel good about it, and then they do it again, and then they do it again. But without that catalyzing content, then you have technology platform by itself. And we already have that. It's called social media. So then people are like, okay, maybe I'll post, maybe I won't. And, I think that's where if you only think on the tech side, it becomes, to me, much more boring, because yes, it's awesome to help people tell their stories. And I think that's something that's great, but you have to be motivated to tell your story. And we already have so many social networks that are essentially an outlet for you to share your voice and your story. So like what we're doing is framing it within a story world, oftentimes fiction, even though it could be utilized for documentary purposes, and then going really, really in a focused manner of saying, hey, look, Justice for Hire is a show. That's the intention, but it's still utilizing the same process of how you would make a movie, or how you just make a general visual, story, collaborative story.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, is explaining, and I know you've had this challenge from the very beginning, explaining what ReelwUrld is, because that experience, it sounds like it's really that experience, and the movie or whatever content is generated is a byproduct. And I think the thinking is that this is definitely going to generate some really creative byproduct, whether it's a movie or whatever it is. The content is going to be there through this collaborative creative effort. But it's really it sounds like what you're offering people is a experience and in a way to participate with other people in this experience. And that's what is it is, and then, so to me, that doesn't come through as clear. And it's harder to explain when you're watching the, watching the videos. And maybe you necessarily have to break it down to, well, let's make movies. But when you say that, let's make movies, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay. And then you look at the Justice for Hire prototype. Automatically, I'm thinking, okay, this is a platform where they're going to try to create movies. That's not really what you're offering, is it?
No, I think that I think the short answer is no, but there's a part of me that that wishes yes.
Yeah.
Like I wish we were funded where we could say in a position where we could just say, hey, we're only making movies and shows with the world. Like I love that. I think that's a really incredibly focused way to go about. Like I'm personally seeking more focus in my life right now in terms of like my daily activity. I'm like, man, look, this is like even in terms of private capital versus like getting more folks in the WeFunder. We wanted to do a WeFunder for years. Now we have a WeFunder running, and traffic has to be driven to that WeFunder. And so if I'm not doing something every day to drive traffic there, then the only other responsible thing I could be doing in terms of for fundraising side is reaching out to people like privately. And those private conversations require so much energy from my experience. And
Right.
so, and that energy does not necessarily result in a publicly viewable paper trail that can get you help other people understand what you're going through or what I'm going through to do this. So like my mentality is make it public, and I have to reaffirm that. Even saying it to you is part of me reaffirming it, because I've been in on so many private calls in the last 2 weeks, just trying to get the us to a new level. I'm just like, man, this doesn't. I'm behind closed doors again. I just spent another hour today behind closed doors talking with somebody that I'm hoping comes on and helps us to supercharge what we're doing. And that's a very, very draining experience. And at the end of the day, the most value I could bring to the real world ecosystem, if there's three things, one of them is me just cutting an end product, meaning the first season of Justice for Hire with this 100 hours of content that we have. And it's not something where I can just call people up and be like, hey, you take these 10 hours, you take these 10 hours, you take these 10 hours and cut. It's really more so like understanding that these that at the very least I have to cut a very solid first episode, in the similar way that a director who's the executive producer of a series might direct the very first episode of the show to set the tone for the rest of the directors who are going to cut and produce the show. And you'll see that in Mandalorian. You'll see that in
series after series.
Series after series, exactly. David Fincher with House of Cards, he did the first episode. So I'm very clear on my man. I need to cut at the very least a great first episode, so everyone that's not So I'm just it's so many things. It's so many things. I'm going to press stop real quick because I want to ask you another question. Hold on one second.